It is Andy here today to talk about a highly anticipated matchup. A cannoli-eating New Yorker is going to talk about two teams from Ontario in Canada. There are Canadians watching this video who can't even tell you where to get a good cannoli, who can't even tell you what a cannoli is, listening to a cannoli-eating big-nosed New Yorker talk about the two teams in their area, the two rivals in their area. Yet it's going to be the cannoli eater who's going to break down this series for the majority of you. So we have this rivalry between these two teams. If you're just from Kansas and you have no clue, it is an intra-province rivalry between these two teams. And anytime that kind of happens, it's a little bit of a monkey wrench thrown into it. I mean, we're seeing that with the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Florida Panthers, although I'll argue while there's definitely a rivalry between the teams, it's just a lot different. There's not tons of media attention following Barkov to his nice home in southern Florida. That's not the case in Ontario. These guys can't go get a local cup of coffee without people, Jake Sanderson can't get a cup of coffee without being heckled by some Toronto Maple Leafs fan. Whole different vibe, which adds a certain level of added extra intensity to this matchup and to this rivalry. Now, the first topic that we're going to talk about here, it needs no introduction. It needs no sort of preface. The Toronto Maple Leafs repeated, mostly embarrassing playoff failures. The Toronto Maple Leafs, this core, this iteration, the core 4 version, has lost in every way humanly imaginable in a playoff series. They've lost series where they jumped out to a 3-1 lead, like against the Montreal Canadiens. They've lost series where they had a 3-2 lead and then lost Game 6 on the road, blew a lead, and Game 7 in overtime. They've lost a deciding game even in the bubble in their own home building. They've lost every way you can imagine. They've lost to the Boston Bruins several times, just losses all over the place. And then they've even been dominated by an 8, so they finally got that one playoff series win and then got dominated by the 8 seed Panthers, eliminated them in 5. They found every single way to lose. It's time for them to start finding ways to win. But is that going to happen? I think they definitely have a chance to win, which is sad to say that the division leader has a chance to win. But this isn't going to be your old average playoff series. This is going to be war out there. And not just because it's two rivals playing against each other, the battle of non-cannoli Ontario. Non-cannoli Ontario? But the series will be war. Both of these teams are I wrote top 10, but I really think it's like top 6 or 8 in hits per 60 minutes. So these teams actually do throw a bunch of hits. Then you have the full, I haven't played in the playoffs my whole career. I'm just going out. I don't care if I lose. I'm taking someone with me, Brady Tkachuk. We saw kind of his impact in the Four Nations. We saw what Matthew Tkachuk did in that first playoff run with Florida, just kind of changed their whole vibe. They went from a soft team, and that kind of sets the tone for the rest of the team. Who's going to be that next scumbag? Who's going to be the Sam Bennett to Brady Tkachuk? Or the Sam Bennett to Matthew Tkachuk? Who's going to be that version on the Ottawa Senators? I guess we will find out. But there's going to be hits all over the place. This is going to be a very physical series. And I think that's awful for the Toronto Maple Leafs Stanley Cup chances. I give the Toronto Maple Leafs virtually no chance to win a Stanley Cup. And some of that is not any of their doing. It's not their fault. Straight up goodwill hunting, it's not your fault. Because the road to a Stanley Cup, this is another one of my long-time rules. The road to the Stanley Cup, for many teams, it requires a route that sometimes travels around a series that will destroy you, even if you do win. Like the Boston Bruins were one of those teams. Even if you eliminated them, they're taking out 1 or 2 of your players. Like 1 or 2 of your players usually comes out of that series injured. And this series, it is going to be war every single game. It's going to be hits all over the place. And then after that, if they play the Panthers, it will be all-out war again. So then you have 2 very physical series. Then if you are to trust the odds, you have to play Carolina, who is unbelievably physical. Whatever would be left of this Toronto Maple Leafs team would just be dragging into the Stanley Cup Finals, and I give them virtually no chance of winning the Cup. If they won a Cup, this would be one of the all-time runs, legitimately, that we've ever seen. during the Stanley Cup playoffs. So the physical nature of this series is really going to play a big part. So it would behoove the Toronto Maple Leafs to take care of this series early if possible, because the later this series goes, the more the momentum will start to swing toward the Senators. Because if this goes further into the series and there are fewer penalties called, that obviously helps the team who their penalty kill has been bottom 5, I think, since the Four Nations came back. And then a hot power play over there in Toronto. So if they can use that, if Toronto can use that to their advantage early in the series and get a big lead and maybe eliminate the Sens in 5, that's kind of how they have to do it. If this goes 6 or 7 and gets dragged into the later part of the series, you guys know the deal. The refs aren't calling a bunch of penalties. They're going to get 1 power play max, and you could be dealing with a 2-1 final like we got in that Game 7 versus Boston last year. And there's a reason I keep repeatedly bashing on Mitch Marner's style of play, because his career stats in Game 7s, right? Not all these power plays, not these high-scoring games. 0 goals, 2 assists in 5 games. And then even 0 goals, 0 assists in that Game 5 versus the Columbus Blue Jackets in the 2020 playoff qualifying round thing in the bubble where they lost on their own home ice. Just a ton of duds for Marner in Game 7s. You don't want, if you're a team like the Leafs, you don't want to have this go to a Game 7. You really don't. Because without things like extra power plays and without chances going back and forth, you're leaving it to a clenched ass cheeks game. And I don't know if that's going to serve you well. Hasn't served you well in the past against the Lightning in Game 7, 2-1 loss on home ice. And then last year, 2-1 loss. Are we figuring out exactly what's going to happen here? Is it going to be a 2-1 loss in Game 7 to the Ottawa Senators? That would be something. How about this one right here? Auston Matthews. Potential X factor, right? Former 60-goal scorer. Well, he's clearly not at full health. He's been pulled out of the lineup at several points throughout the season. You know it's just going to be announced that he has some off-season surgery after this season is over. He hasn't played up to his ability. I mean, I think it was like a 40-goal pace this season, coming off a 70-goal season, and he just hasn't looked like he's had that extra oomph, whatever you want to call it. Considering the type of physicality that's going to happen in this round, potentially next round, and round after that, this probably will become a story. If you see Auston Matthews go quiet in the playoffs, even if it's not right away and it starts, you're going to start wondering about his health and how that kind of affects these series. Because, in Toronto, that pressure really starts to mount and those headlines start to pile up real quick. So his health is really something to monitor, how he's playing from game to game. So the top 6 forwards, I mean, there's no doubt, although Ottawa has quality top 6 forwards, the Leafs have a more elite set of top 6 forwards and more of an elite power play, although early this season, Ottawa did have one of the best power plays. But the bottom 6, this has been a question about the Leafs for years. Their bottom 6 is clearly inferior to Ottawa's bottom 6. You have Greg, Pinto. You have guys with Stanley Cup pedigree like Amadio in there. I think there's even Gaudette down there on the 4th line. So their bottom 6, in my opinion, and most people's opinion, definitely more of an advantage on the Ottawa side there. And the potential X factor in this series, Linus Ullmark. We've seen him win Vezinas. We've seen him play poorly in the playoffs. I just mentioned him yesterday when I talked about how he was injured, or a couple videos ago, how after the season he said he was in agonizing pain and shouldn't have been playing. Was that an excuse? Did he just play poorly? Because while he got to a rocky start in the early point of the season, he's actually been pretty steady from the midway point on. And he can provide that difference. I mean, we've seen them somewhat get goalied in the past. He can be that difference maker when it comes to the Ottawa Senators dragging this series into longer waters. That's what they have to do. They have to get it to Game 6 at home, maybe get a win, and then bring it back. Put all that pressure. Think about the pressure. And what Lois Einhorn once told me, what do you know about pressure? There's going to be no pressure on Ottawa, who's not going to be expected to win that game. This is their first appearance in the Stanley Cup. Even if they lose, they'll say, all right, but they got their growing pains. Let's build on it next year. All the pressure in the world on Toronto for a Game 7. So early series, going to favor Toronto. Late series, I think favors Ottawa because there's no pressure. So here's what I'm going to do. You've been asking me to pick an upset. I think you can never really go wrong picking against a team when you're looking for upsets who's like 1-7 in their last 8 playoff series, however many playoff series this core 4 has lost. Like I said when I opened this video, they find ways to repeatedly lose. One way or another, there's a new excuse. All of a sudden, after they'll say, oh my God. Do you remember when they were 3-1 down to Boston? It was like, gut this team, everybody's awful. And then they fought back to Game 7, and then everybody shifts the narrative. But if I died after Game 5, all I would remember is, what a preposterous concept, is that how this Leafs team was an utter embarrassment. Everyone said ship Marner out of town. Who cares about that contract? But now they fought their way back to Game 7, lost a close Game 7, had a great regular season, which pretty much they always have. Are things going to change? At least they have the coach to maybe believe in that. But like I said, I think there's no chance for them to win a cup. And this isn't as much about them, although I just... How many times does a specific team have to lose early for you to eventually change what's working there? So I think that's it. This is the final year of like those core 4 contracts. What's going to be great is if they lose again and then they just extend Marner and then Tavares is coming back. Let's roll out the core 4 till the end of time. And you're going to be doing like what these Penguins are doing, where they just keep rolling Crosby and Malkin out there and see what happens. So one thing I'm going to give you here, either it's going to look brilliant or it's going to look awful. I think Toronto's getting that Game 1 win. I mean, they're set up so well for a Game 1 win early in a series. Like I said, you get the penalty calls, you get everything. It's the closest you'll get to the regular season. I'm going to go with Toronto, Game 1 win, Senators to win the series. I'm also picking the over 6.5 games in this series. And then if you want the just full Nostradamus sniffs. No. If you want that, Game 7, 2-1 loss, Ottawa wins. That's what I'm going to go with. That's what I have for you here. Sorry, Leafs fans. It's just one of those things. I sided with the Oilers just begrudgingly. You got to think Toronto should win this series. But you should never have too much of a hard time betting on something that you've repeatedly seen. No, not 2 or 3 times. 5, 6, 8, 9 times. And also, if you are a Toronto fan, just pray to the gods. Tampa wins. You need the proper Florida's going to be the worst thing for your life. But I think you can weasel by Tampa. So that's what I would be rooting for if you are a Toronto Maple Leafs fan out there. That's what I have for you for yet another series preview. This was, an exciting one that I know you guys wanted. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it, give me a click. You know that if you didn't enjoy it, you should also give me a click. So like these videos, comment on them, say what you think. Tell me how great Mitch Marner is. If you died after Game 5, all you would have told me is how this is the worst player ever. He needs to get out of here. He doesn't play the proper style of playoff hockey. The narratives change quickly. I'll never be duped by solid regular season play. And the Rock means ever. Give me those clicks. If you want, join the Patreon. That's where I'll have out all the stuff that I possibly can. Anything I think of last minute, like I found some bet in the Colorado series I like, I'll put that up in there. And that's where we got the community of sniffers. That's where Josh puts out all his baseball picks. That's how you can thank me for everything I've done this year. No sponsors here, no yoo-hoo, even though I've just talked about them again. I don't like that I keep bringing them up. I need a new... It just sounds so good coming off the tongue. That's inadvertently another commercial. No, there are no advertisements here, so you guys are my lone sponsor. So if you can, if you want to, if not, no big deal. It's patreon.com/Andy Francess. I will see you for the next video. Take it easy, and good luck.